Destiny. London, 1893. In London, 1893, a young girl named Destiny Stewart was just walking through the crowded city street when she saw a theft taking place, so she tried to stop it. The trouble was she was only 9 years old, and there wasn't much she could do to stop it. "I wish I was older," she said to herself. A kindly gentleman stopped to talk to her. "What's your name, little one?" he asked her. "Destiny Stewart, sir," she replied. "Well, young Destiny, you don't want to go wishing your life away. Enjoy your childhood while you can," he advised her. "Thank you, sir," said Destiny. "Oh, please, Destiny, don't call me sir. The name's Stephen Marshall," the gentleman told her politely, and went on his way. Having received some excellent advice to enjoy being a child, Destiny went home to play with her porcelain dolls, which she loved and treasured like they were younger brothers and sisters. While she was now having the good childhood she'd been advised to have, she couldn't help wondering what her future might hold. Her mother, Ellie, even wanted her to have the best childhood she could, and constantly advised her not to think so much about the future. Little did either of them know, but a family tragedy was soon to change all that, and Destiny's life, as she knew it, was about to take a turn for the unexpected, as her mother was trampled by horses and killed, leaving her orphaned. As her father passed away when she was 3, the police were about to toss her into a workhouse until Stephen Marshall stepped in to put a stop to it by adopting her to be his daughter, and she was very appreciative of this gesture. She was devastated by the death of her mother, and Stephen understood this, which was why he allowed her to grieve Ellie's untimely demise. In the next 3 months, Destiny's life was back on track, and she was happy in Stephen's care, and she came to know him and love him as her new father. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and listening, and have us a magical time. Destiny 2, obviously by me. London, 1900. After 7 years of the finest love any random man could give her, Destiny Stewart was now 16 years old, and about to leave her compulsory education behind. Thanks to Stephen Marshall, her adoptive father, she had a place at his old school, Norton High, which offered education for boys and girls up to 6th form if needed. Over the last 7 years, Destiny had become a very well-educated and respected member of the community. It was June 1900, and she was ready to leave school behind and start her new life as a young woman of independence. While Stephen was proud of her accomplishments and wasn't ready to say goodbye to her yet, but he knew she was grateful to him for all he'd done for her over the time she'd been in his care, and respected that she felt like she was ready to move on. So he gave her some money to rent a flat a few blocks away, and was going to help her move in after leaving school. The following Friday, he attended her leavers assembly and was full of pride as she walked across the stage to collect her leavers awards and portfolio. She was really proud to have finished her full-time education and was about to enter the real world. Shortly after leaving school, she was moving into her own flat with help from Stephen and 3 of her new neighbours. To thank them all for helping her to move in, she invited them to stay for coffee and cakes. Stephen hugged her. "Your mother and father would be proud of you, love," he told her. "I thought you were her father, sir," said Tom Leslie. Tom Leslie, her neighbour from number 6, her birth parents, Sonny. Her father died when she was 3, and her mother died 7 years ago. I took her under my wing shortly following that event, and I'm glad I did," he told him. "I'm glad you did too, Father. Life's been great with you," said Destiny. Stephen smiled. "Destiny, love, I used to work with your birth father. We were best friends, and when he married your mother, I was his best man. And then 16 years ago, at the time of your birth, they appointed me your godfather," he told her. Destiny was surprised to hear this news. "You're my godfather?" she repeated. "Yes, sweetheart, and I promised them I'd bring you up if anything happened to them." Destiny was relieved to find this out, and appreciated Stephen all the more for it, and hugged him. 3 weeks later, Destiny found herself a job at the local bookshop, which was enough to feed, clothe, and house her for a few years, before she would have to move away again. A week later, tragedy would once again strike as Stephen's life was taken after being hit by a train while trying to rescue a stray cat from the same fate. At his funeral, she gave a strong and powerful eulogy, and everyone thought it was very moving. Even Stephen's lawyer, who told her she'd inherited all of Stephen's money and possessions, including his house, which she accepted gracefully. Another 3 weeks later, she moved back into Stephen's house and found herself a boyfriend to share the love with. His name was Freddie King, and he loved her for who she was, and not just her money, and not just for her money. It was stated in Stephen's will that it was his wish that she found a man to share the love with, and she'd done just that. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, guys, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Hi guys, and welcome to welcome to Semajical Story Time. Now, you would have noticed the Destinyverse videos going up every time I've had one to do, and the last few have been scheduled. That is a category of stories for this series. This category I'm going to be introducing here now is stories from my life. I'm going to go with random stories that happened at random points in my life. There may be some exaggerations, but most of it will have to be the true accounts of what happens from my own memory. And I thought, to kick things off, I'd tell you the story of the ogre teacher. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me tell you the story. The story is set at my old primary school of Riverside in Purbrook, here in the UK, in 1998, when actually, in the spring of 1999, the class and I were gearing up for an Easter production of a book called Why Flies Buzz. The teacher at the time was a lady called Yvonne Richards. Now, this was before a new pupil named Stephen Mason joined the school, and I was moved back into my previous class. So we were tasked with designing our costumes for this play. I was sent into the little room with my friend Stephen Sherwood, who was also going to be playing a fly like me. Yep, she told him though not to let me design my own character's wings, but he decided to let me design them anyway. So I designed them with zigzag patterns and everything, and when he went to show them, oh boy, her ogre side came out in full force. And she said, as I remember, and I quote, "You were asked not to let that boy do them." I knew we would make them look so stupid. He's going to be wearing them too. Yeah, this lady just did not trust me to do my own costume design. The long and short of it is, this teacher was a complete and utter B-word that I'm not going to say in full, but the long and short of it, she was. And I don't know why I didn't just stand up to her when I should have. Well, actually I do know, because I would have got into trouble if I did, but I could have just done what most other kids did at that school when they got upset with the teachers and stormed out of the classroom through the fire exit, but I didn't do that either. I just sat there and enjoyed her bad-mouthing me to another teacher who I actually liked. So, yeah. The long and short of it, that teacher was a complete ogre. Now, I was 10 at the time this happened. Almost 11. And the play did go very well in the end. Although, because of the fuss that the teacher made about the design of the wings that I put to them, yeah, she expected my friend Stephen to treat me like a baby, because she was treating me like one. And also, to tie into this teacher's ogreism, she would even have a go at me for making simple mistakes such as wringing a wet flannel all over a floor when she tasked me to give the countertop a clean. And it certainly didn't help that her assistant, Mrs. Powell, was also an ogre. So I was in a class being taught by two ogres. And I remember being tasked to wipe down the countertop, and where the teacher didn't tell me to be careful with the flannel, I ended up wringing the flannel on the floor. And I got grassed up by the assistant, and the teacher then turned around and said, "Oh, James, oh, honestly." Yeah, a simple mistake, and I got told off for it. Yeah. You see how hard it was to be in this teacher's class. And that event actually was earlier in the year. So, yeah. Then, at Riverside, we also went to the outdoor centre in Portsmouth every year. And now, it started out fine. I went to the first day of this trip, and I collided head first with a lamppost and injured my head. So as a result, I got pulled off the rest of the trip. And when the teacher, Yvonne Richards, found this out, she then went on a tirade saying how that the headmaster, David Jones, was furious that I wasn't allowed to go on this trip for the rest of the week. It was because I'd injured my head. And now the headmaster of the school, Mr. Jones, he was a saint. He was the most patient, kindest and caring man you could ever hope to meet. And with this ogre teacher, you can see where I'm going with this. I hated this teacher. She came across as a complete ogre to me. So, that is why I'm telling you the story as if it's a fantasy. So yeah, there you go. And I'm the hero having to endure it. So... um... Where was I? Oh yeah. So, she then went back to treating me like the bad guy. Despite the fact I'd had to go to the doctors to have my head looked at after the accident, and been forbidden by him from going on the trip anymore. So, now that's not all. No. This was also around the time I was due to have, this was also around the time I had the grommets in my ears. It was the year after that, as a matter of fact. And as a result, I wasn't allowed to go swimming by the doctor's orders. So what does this teacher do? She sits me in the naughty corner like a toddler and yells at me for being a wimp for not going near water, despite the fact that the doctor had forbidden me from going near it because of the grommet in my ears. This is all true stories, by the way. And then she even went on to say it proves what a crybaby I was. Her exact words. Because she was telling me how, at Glenwood you will have to go in the swimming pool, whether you have the grommet or not. They'll just say, get in there, boy! You're a wimp. That proves what a baby you are. Yeah, experiences like that do stick in your head. I was not allowed to go near the swimming pool, just to reiterate, again, because I'd had the grommet in my ears and it was the doctor's orders, so that wasn't my fault. It was, however, the teacher's fault. She disregarded this. So, yeah, what a B word she was. So then, later that year, I was happy to have been moved back into my old teacher's class. But that's a story for another day. Because that teacher was not an ogre. The teacher I was with before that was. And I forgot to mention at the time, she was teaching a mix of Year 5 and Year 6 pupils. So that's the story of the ogre teacher. I hope you enjoyed. There will be another story from my own life coming soon. Until then, thanks for watching. Oh, and if you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share and subscribe. And have us a magical time. Destiny 3, London, 1905. After 5 long years, Destiny was now happily married to her husband Terry Ball, making her Destiny Ball, having taken his family name upon marrying into his family 3 years earlier. It was a very happy time for them, as Destiny was pregnant with their first child, and they couldn't wait to have their son or daughter. Oh, Terry, this is so exciting. We're going to have a baby, said Destiny. I know, Destiny. Parenthood is going to be a fun new experience for both of us, Terry agreed. It was early days yet, as they'd only just learned of their pregnancy, but they'd already chosen names. They had agreed on the name Crystal if they had a daughter, and Dennis if they had a son. Everyone thought their name choices were very strange, considering their family name was Ball, and if they had a son, They were going to call him Dennis. And if they had a daughter, they were going to name her Crystal. It was currently October the 14th. That should be short. Shortly after Destiny's 21st birthday, making her legally an adult, and she was married and 9 months away from becoming a mother. As the months went by, the pregnancy progressed very smoothly. Just before Christmas, Terry decided to move his wife and unborn child to the Scottish countryside for a better place to raise their child. Scotland, 1906. It was now 4 months after the move to Scotland, and Destiny was now 5 months pregnant, which meant they needed to get the nursery ready for their baby's arrival in 3 months' time. That should mean she's 6 months pregnant, not 5. Okay, how fast? They stood back to admire their handiwork. 3 months later, Destiny gave birth to their daughter, who they named Crystal, as agreed 9 months ago. 8 months. Okay. And they loved her to pieces. Everyone thought Crystal was a beautiful baby. 3 more months later, Destiny celebrated her 22nd birthday, and it was a great party. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Hi guys, welcome back to Stories from My Life, the part of Semajical Story Time where I share you stories from my life and may exaggerate parts of them. Now, the last time I told you a story from when I was in year 6, and that was for most of the year with that ogre teacher. But how about we do a prequel of sorts to that story, set 3 years beforehand. So 1995, and it's set on the playground at Riverside School. And it's the story of the day that I first met the boy who would at that time become my best friend, Darren Stratton. So, the way we both remember this is, it was during a school playtime. That's what we call recess here in the UK, by the way, for those of you in the US who don't know. Yes, it was during a school playtime. I was over the other side of the playground hanging out with classmates when I look over to a wall to see a boy sitting there having a bad day and crying. So I go over to introduce myself to him and ask him what was the matter. He tells me that he is having a bad hair day and he has no friends, and his name is Darren Stratton. I tell him my name is James Barrett. I took him under my wing and became his first, and at the time and for many years after that, only friend. No, I didn't do it out of pity. I did it because I genuinely wanted to do it. And our friendship from that day on started to grow ever stronger. Because he himself even had run-ins with angry ogre teachers who didn't understand his condition. Now, he's autistic like me, by the way, and he has Asperger's syndrome, which was diagnosed when he was about 1.5 years old. So, I didn't know this at the time, though. And over the years, since 1995, we would go through a lot together, a heck of a lot. Now, I can't help but feel he should be here with me telling the story, because the story only starts in 1995. We're now going to jump forward. Yes, that's right. We're now going to jump forward 4 years to 1999, when he was having the same problems with the same teacher. Only she got upset with him for getting upset in the first place, and he couldn't help it because of his condition. So every time he got upset and threw a wobbler, he got punished for it. So this proves what a bitch that teacher really was. It was the same teacher who had a go at me for making simple mistakes. So yeah. And not being allowed to go swimming, and not being allowed to go to the outdoor centre for the rest of a week. But she was having a go at him for just getting upset. Which happened frequently, by the way. And he would go off into his own world during classes quite a bit by pretending to have phone calls. Yeah. Literally, I would sit next to him in class, and at some point during the day, he would make a phone ringing sound and pretend to answer a phone call. So, yeah. I saw no problem with this. I actually thought it was quite fun, imagining who he might be pretending to talk to. So, but the teacher, on the other hand, just saw it as him being an idiot and complained to us about it during the point giving at the end of the day. Like, chillax, woman. Surely you should have known the boy was autistic and just let him get on with it. Again, this was at the time I was still his only friend, by the way. And even though I was quick to accept any apology he might give for getting upset, by the way, Darren, if you're watching this, and I hope you are, that wasn't your fault. Don't go thinking it was. So, and yeah. I'm not going to go actually imitating any of the tantrums he may have had during this time. But the teachers, in their infinite wisdom, decided to get a tape recorder and record him having one of these fits. Now, what type of teacher would be cruel enough to do that to a pupil who is obviously upset? They shouldn't be doing that, and someone should have gone and reported those teachers to the saintly headmaster. So, and I really did think that my old primary school headmaster was a saint. So yeah, you know. I'll tell you about him in a later story. So, now, so we covered 1995, we've covered 1999. What's next for Darren's story with him and our friendship? We're gonna jump ahead again now to 2000 when he first started at Glenwood, our old secondary school, by the way. I was year 8 at the time he was starting year 7, and by the way, year 8 is what you out there in the US may call the 7th grade. So, because it's the same age group, 12 to 13-year-olds. And I was in the technology teachers tutor group. Now, I'm not going to go into the reasons why that was, because this is to do with my friendship with Darren. Now, all the while we were at the same school together at Glenwood, we would stick up for each other whenever we saw the other person getting bullied. And yes, Darren frequently suffered from upset at Glenwood as well, but I was never there to see it. So, except for when we were both on the receiving end of getting bullied. He got it more than I did, though, because of his condition not being understood at the time. I didn't even know, I didn't even understand what made him do it at the time either, because that would actually come 9 years later in 2009 when I was browsing Facebook and came across a post on there by Darren explaining the situation, that he had Asperger's syndrome. And I didn't know that until then, and we were 14 years into our friendship. So, yeah, I know, as with any friendship story, just starting out. So now we've moved through the years up until 2009, which would be when we first started actually being able to see each other properly. Now, in 2001, he paid a brief visit to our house during that summer, a surprise visit. In 2005, I actually had him round for a proper visit, and this is when the first time we'd ever hung out properly outside of school happened. Well, I'd already left school by that point, and Darren was year 11. Probably about a couple of months away from leaving. It was around April. So I was nearing the end of my first year of college by that point. By the way, at that point in school, at that point here, we left school at 16. And our colleges don't offer degrees. So, yeah. So, that's universities over here. Anyway, I'm now going to jump ahead to 2010 when me and Darren first started properly hanging out. The first time we ever did this properly, he lived at a place called Chaucer Close at the time, which was a halfway house, and I would go there for sleepovers and to hang out with him and other people I knew who lived there also. And we would actually start hitting the road and travelling to places in 2010 as well. He was at Chaucer Close for a couple of years, and he moved to flat 11 Maple House in Havant in 2012, where he then stayed, where I would go to visit him and have frequent sleepovers. And now here's an interesting part of the story. In 2015, now I should point out, in 2014, Darren joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormons, and we would start talking about it. And in 2015, for whatever reason, I decided to pull the trigger and join it myself. And I asked him to do all the baptizing and the confirming of membership and the ordination to the Aaronic priesthood. And I would be there diligently every week doing stuff. And well, I'm gonna get away from that now, because this is about mine and Darren's friendship. In 2016, he moved from Maple House to where he is now, Chapel House, flat 9. And I shouldn't have said that, but that's where he is now. I helped him to move in, as did another friend of ours, John Turnbull, and a neighbour whose name I shall actually leave private. I should have left the other friend's name private as well. And being the good friend that I was, of course I was willing to help him move in. But it was a long, hard job. But I didn't complain once. Anyway, to thank us for helping him to move in, he invited us to stay for a takeaway that evening. I know, this story started out with the origins of mine and Darren's friendship, and now it's gone through quite a few years of story of our friendship. Now, I was there to see him graduate from both his university courses as well. From 2010 to 2013, he was on the bachelor's course at the University of Portsmouth. He started out as a computer science student and then switched to computing because he wasn't doing well in computer sciences. And he would take me for regular visits to the chaplaincy at the Nuffield Centre. And he would introduce me to a lot of his lecturers and all the chaplains. And at the time of his first graduation, when I was helping him actually prepare to graduate, one of the lecturers on that course, Alice Good, I'll mention it here, actually offered me a place on the same course. I'm not joking. But mine and Darren's friendship, to close off this story, has gone through some trials and tribulations over the years, and we've grown stronger because of them. So, this is more of a friendship story than an origin story to our friendship. So, I'm going to end it here. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Crystal, a spin-off from Destiny. Obviously they're by me. Scotland, 1915. Crystal Ball was the young daughter of Destiny and Terry Ball. She was 9 years old and lived in Glasgow with them and her newborn brother Dennis, whom she loved to pieces and enjoyed helping them look after him. However, so she could be a normal girl, they hired a nanny to help take care of him, which she appreciated. She was out with her friends Mary Ellis and Olivia Norris, with whom she was best friends. They'd just finished lunch at Dixon's Cafe, just outside town, and were parting ways for the day, so they said goodbye and went their separate ways. As she was making her way home, her eyes clouded over and she saw a vision of Terry being murdered by a robber, which caused her to collapse. She woke up 3 hours later to find Terry sitting next to her on the sofa. "Father, is that you?" she asked. "Of course it's me, sweetie. Are you feeling all right?" replied Terry. Destiny entered with Dennis. "Sleeping Beauty is awake," she said, seeing how panicked she was. "Whatever is the matter?" she asked. "Mother, we have to secure the house." Crystal burst out. "Why?" asked Destiny. Terry took hold of Dennis and went to feed him. "Father's going to be attacked and killed by a robber," Crystal told her. Destiny looked at her, shocked. "How do you know this?" she asked. "I had a vision of it while walking home. That's why I collapsed," replied Crystal. Destiny thought Crystal was making a sick joke and smacked her. "Don't ever make jokes like that again. That's very naughty," she scolded. "I'm not joking, Mother. It's serious. We have to keep Father from being murdered," Crystal insisted. Destiny grabbed her up. "You get to bed this minute. How dare you keep this nonsense up?" she scolded. As Crystal made her way sadly upstairs, Terry brought Dennis back in and placed him in his playpen. "What was that about, honey?" he asked. "Crystal was being naughty, dear. She was making up stories about being a seer. She pretended to predict a robber breaking in, attacking and killing you," Destiny told him. "I see." "Wait, what?" he replied. "Don't worry, I sent her to bed," she told him. "I don't think Crystal was lying about that at all. She did look genuinely panicked over something," he replied. Crystal came down to apologize, but Destiny pulled her into a hug. Later that afternoon, Crystal's vision came true, as the robber actually did break in and attack Terry, who tried to defend himself, but the robber pinned him down and jammed a knife into his chest, killing him instantly. This caused great sadness and depression in the family, especially for Destiny, who had just become a widow, and her children, who were going to grow up without a father. This was especially true of Dennis, as he barely got to know his father. This meant the nanny, Sophie Smith, was now needed to help raise Crystal as well until she turned 16, and wouldn't need a nanny anymore. Destiny now knew she'd been wrong to punish Crystal for lying about her vision, when she'd been telling the truth all along. 2 weeks after the funeral, she sat Crystal down for a chat and told her that her great-grandmother had also been a seer. "These things often skip a couple of generations," she told her. "So Nana wasn't a seer either?" asked Crystal. "No, darling. In fact, you're the first seer in 3 generations," Destiny told her. Sophie entered with Dennis. "Crystal, sweetie," she called. "Yes, Sophie?" replied Crystal. "I'm taking Dennis for a walk. Would you like to join us?" asked Sophie. Destiny stepped in. "Go on, darling. You need some fresh air," she told her gently. So she did join Sophie and Dennis on their walk. Destiny decided to go with them, knowing she needed fresh air too. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a magical time. Destiny 4. Scotland, 1919. Destiny Ball was a widow who had been raising her children Crystal and Dennis purely with the assistance of their governess Sophie for the last 4 years. Destiny was now teaching at Longbow School as their basic level mathematics teacher, meaning she was teaching the subject to 11 to 14-year-olds. At a school that educated until the age of 16. However, Crystal, her now 13-year-old daughter, was fed up of being told what to do by a nanny, for whom she was too old at her age. "You're not old enough to care for yourself yet," she'd tell her every time it came into conversation. Both she and Sophie thought it was good for both of Destiny's children to share a nanny. Dennis was now 4 and still coming to terms with his father's death, as it was a lot to take in at his age. "You know Daddy loves you very much and is very proud of you," Destiny, Sophie and Crystal would tell him many times a day, which comforted him. One Sunday, Destiny was home alone with Dennis whilst Crystal and Sophie were out on an errand for her, and was loving every moment of her son's company. They sat there doing puzzles and playing I Spy for 3 hours. 4 hours later, she was going to get Dennis ready for bed when Sophie took over to do her job as the nanny, and within half an hour, she'd bathed Dennis and put him to bed. "What time should I be in bed?" asked Crystal. "You know you have to be in bed by 9, young lady," Sophie told her. So Crystal opened her mouth to argue, but Destiny shot her a warning look. "Crystal, if you're going to argue about it, you can jolly well get off to bed now," she scolded. "Mother, I don't need a nanny," Crystal moaned. Sophie took her by the hand. "You heard what your mother said. Come on, I'm putting you to bed." She told her firmly and put her up to bed. 13 years old and having to be sent to bed early like a toddler, she scolded. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have a magical time. Destiny 5. Mostly by me. Scotland, 1924. Destiny Ball had recently celebrated her 40th birthday, and it was the most beautiful birthday she'd ever had. She spent it with her friends and family, meaning her now 18-year-old daughter Crystal and her now 9-year-old son Dennis, who gave her the best day ever, which she very much appreciated. Now, all that fun and celebrating was over and their lives continued as normal. Another change that had happened recently was Sophie had left her job as their nanny, which was just as well because she decided her son was too old for a nanny anymore, and Crystal stopped needing a nanny 2 years ago. However, Destiny was pleasantly surprised when she learned Crystal had applied to nanny school to learn to be a nanny. "What's brought this on, darling?" she asked out of curiosity. "Having Sophie as our nanny for 8 years inspired me to go for it." Crystal replied honestly, "Well, I'm very proud of you, sweetheart," said Destiny. She decided to reveal to her children the reason for Sophie leaving them was that she'd been offered a job at Madame Puddlegum's Nanny Academy as one of their instructors, and decided to accept their offer. She then sat down with Crystal and went through her student application to that same nanny school and helped her to get it filled and mailed out. "Let's hope you get into Madame Puddlegum's, my sweetie," she said. 3 weeks later, she watched proudly as Crystal received her acceptance letter from Madame Puddlegum's Nanny Academy and was really excited for her. Within 2 days of the letter arriving, Sophie came to pay them a visit and told them she'd be serving as the first-year instructor, meaning Crystal was going to be in her class at Madame Puddlegum's. Destiny then chimed in, "I was pleasantly surprised when Crystal told me this," she told Sophie. Later, Destiny was home alone as both her children were out with friends, giving her a chance to relax. As Madame Puddlegum's academy was in London, she had to move the family back to England. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Crystal, Nanny in Training, obviously by me. London, 1925. Crystal Ball was a beautiful young woman of 19 years old who was now 1 year into her nanny training at Madame Puddlegum's Nanny Academy, placing her in the 2nd year of that course, now under the instruction of Nurse Matilda Jones, and was constantly impressing her with how much she'd learned in the past year and 2 weeks. Crystal then revealed she was currently in the part-time employment of the Lowell family as their part-time nanny, gaining experience in it along the way. "Crystal, I'm very impressed you're doing this on top of your training," she told her. "Madame Puddlegum recommended it as part of my training," Crystal told her. And you're doing a good job with it as well, I hear, Nurse Matilda told her. During the lunch break, Nurse Sophie, the first-year instructor, caught up with her. So, Crystal, how's your second year going so far? She asked. It's going really well, thanks, Nurse. It's going really well, thanks. Nurse Matilda is really impressed with me, she told her. I'm glad to hear it. You remind me of me when I was a student here, Nurse Sophie told her. After lunch, she was summoned by Madame Puddlegum, so off she went to see what she wanted. The Lowells are really pleased with your work, dearie, she told her. I'm glad they feel that way, Madame Puddlegum, replied Crystal. In fact, they're so pleased they've offered you a permanent position as their full-time nanny when you qualify, Madame Puddlegum told her. Upon hearing this, Crystal immediately wrote to the Lowells. Wrote the Lowells a letter accepting their job offer when she graduated from the academy. With their meeting out of the way, Crystal returned to class and, as usual, performed beyond the expectations of Nurse Matilda and her fellow second-year students. She far exceeded the expectations of everyone who saw her perform in the practical sessions and during every theoretical exam she took, passing with the highest pass mark possible the school offered. Destiny came to visit her just before Christmas and was really proud of her. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. And until the next one, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Emily's Detour. Obviously, it's by me. Emily Van Gero was an adventurous young woman of 19 who loved taking new routes and detours to and from places. It had been this way for her since she was a little girl, and her dad would often take detours home from places like work, the city centre, his sister's house, and indeed everywhere he went. And more often than not, she'd go with him for these adventures. That was when she was around 5 years old or so. And here she was now, 14 years after the start of those adventures, and the first detour she ever joined him on took place shortly after her 5th birthday. She only turned 19 3 days earlier, and she was in her car driving home from university when she had to stop at a red light. She said to herself thoughtfully. What if I went that way home? She said as she drove on. She decided to take the detour without a moment's hesitation. And as she did, she found herself driving through a rural landscape. I wasn't expecting this, she said to herself as she drove on and on and on. One thing she thought was strange about this woodland road was that there wasn't a single person in sight. A little further in, she felt a tingling sensation down her spine, which made her hair stand on end, brushing it off as goosebumps. Where is everybody? She asked out loud as she wandered What the deal was with such a beautiful landscape not being populated or visited by anyone except her. She eventually decided to stop and have a rest, but thought it wouldn't be wise to stop for long before moving on with her journey. As she drove even further into this strange woodland, she swore she saw a young boy trying to flag her down, so she tried to stop and help him out, but she ended up driving right through him, causing her chills to tingle even stronger as she realized what she'd just seen was a ghost. Did that ghost boy just flag me down? She said through chattering teeth. That's right, Emily. And thank you, said a voice behind her. Who was that? She asked as she looked in the rearview mirror. She saw the same apparition sitting in the back seat of her car. She was so scared she slammed on the brakes and turned to face him. All right now, I want answers, she demanded. But he was gone. Where did he go? She asked herself out of fear. After 10 minutes of sitting there in pure fear, she pulled herself together and drove on until she came out the other end, back on the busy road, where things were back to normal. As she came off the motorway, she drove slowly and carefully, wondering what had just happened to her. A little further down the road, she was flagged down by a boy of about 13 years old, so she stopped to help. Hello there, Ricky, she said as she pulled over. Hello, Em. Could I trouble you for a lift home? He asked her. Of course, hop in, she said, opening the front passenger door. Then he got in and buckled up. On the way home, she told him about her detour through the strange woodland. Where she was stopped by a ghost, which was her worst fear. Oh, I see, you took a detour through the forest of fear, where everyone meets their worst fears. For you, it's ghosts. They say some have faced and conquered their worst fears head on in there, whilst others have gone in and never come out, he told her as they pulled up outside his house. He thanked her, gave her a hug and jumped out, leaving her to think about what he'd just told her for the rest of her journey home. As she pulled into her driveway, she thought more about it. As she walked through the front door, her little brother Tony saw how freaked out she was. Are you all right, sis? He asked, but she just picked him up and hugged him. That was Emily's Detour. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching. And have a magical time. The Twinkling, a Fairyland Tale, by me, obviously. This is the first of the Fairyland Tales. So the physiology of the fairies. Fairies are magical beings who reside in fairyland, which is located past the fifth star to the left and straight on till night time. And as such their physiology is vastly different from ours. They are born among the stars after a pregnancy of 81 months, equivalent to 9 months on Earth, which is 9 times slower than that of a human. The kicker of this is that they don't age 9 times slower than humans. Despite taking 9 times longer to be born, they actually age 900 times slower. This would mean that one fairy year is equivalent to 900 years on Earth. The only exception to this rule is the tooth fairy, who can age at a normal human rate and possesses the ability to freeze time. Of course, fairies can live thousands of years once they reach maturity, which isn't until they reach 512 years of age. Illyria was a young fairy who had been a young adult for 50 years, and it was time for her to experience the twinkling, the ceremony in which all fairies underwent on their 512th birthdays to help them transition smoothly from adolescence to adulthood. As she turned 512 years old just 2 hours earlier, her mother Starla and her father Sirius were there to see her through it. As she fluttered up to the fairy elders for her ceremony, as the Grand Elder fluttered forward, "Illyria, you have been called forth on this day to receive the twinkling. Are you aware of what it is?" he asked her. "Yes, O Grand Elder, sir," replied Illyria. "Then pray do tell us what it is," he ordered her. "The twinkling is a ceremony in which fairies receive their rite of passage and start their adulthood. 512 is a very special birthday for all fairies," she told them all. "Precisely, young lady. And it is now time for you to make that transition. Please assume the still position," the Grand Elder commanded. And she went completely still. All the elders gathered around her and placed their wands on her head to perform the ceremony. As they spoke, she began to glow, and once the last word was spoken, she twinkled like a newly formed star. That was it done, and Illyria had become a fully legal adult in the fairy world, which meant the underage magic detection charm on her wand had broken, and she could legally perform fairy magic everywhere she went, including the human world, if she had a good reason. If not, she would still be breaking fairy law, possibly seriously enough to get her banished from fairyland, which no fairy wanted. And that was fairy tale number 1, or fairyland tale number 1, The Twinkling. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Until the next one, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Hi guys, and welcome to another new section of Semajical Story Time. This one's for urban legends, you know, those stories that start out as just harmless campfire stories that are told as if they're true stories, but then each time they're retold, parts of the story change and they're morphed into something new. So guys, I thought to kick this section of Semajical Story Time off, I would retell one of my favourite urban legends, and the urban legend I've chosen to retell is the clown statue. Now, imagine, if you will, a couple, a mum and a dad, going out for the night and hiring a babysitter to watch their kids. Well, that's exactly what the couple in this story did. They were going out for the night, so they hired a babysitter to watch their kids, and told them the kids could stay up for another hour, then they had to go to bed. Well, told the babysitter this. So, once the parents were gone, the babysitter gave the kids their dinner, and after another hour she put them to bed, and then settled down in the parents' room to watch TV. But this was no ordinary TV viewing, because in the corner of the parents' room there stood a life-size clown statue, which seemed to unnerve the babysitter. Unnerved her so much that when the parents called to check in and see if everything was okay, she asked if she could cover up the clown statue in the corner of the bedroom, only to receive the chilling reply, "We don't have a clown statue," coming from the father on the other end of the phone. Alarmed, she then went racing up to the kids' bedroom to find them slain, because as it turns out, what she thought was a clown statue was an intruder in a clown costume, just standing there in the corner of the room like a statue. There, looks can be deceiving. That's only the first of the stories I'm going to present here today, because I've got another one for you guys. Yes, another one. The next urban legend I'm going to share with you is the backseat killer, or the killer in the backseat. And this is another straightforward one to tell, actually, because it details a young woman driving down what otherwise appeared to be a deserted street in the middle of the night. All the while there was a car flashing their headlights behind her. So she, also tailing her. So she pulls into a gas station for help. And that's when the driver of the car behind her jumps out, races after her, and turns her to face her car. And stepping out of the back door is a man with a knife. Who got blinded by the lights of this woman saviour's car every time he flashed. And every time the killer tried to make the killing move. having to duck down. Neither of these stories is true. They're all purely legends. Okay. Now guys, this next story may chill your bones more than the last two, and I'll explain why at the end. Here we go. The Girl in the Shadows. Now this is the story of a man who lives alone in an apartment. He goes out to work and comes back to find food missing from the fridge, and that his things have been used. Unsure what this is, sure though he has an intruder, he sets up a security camera to try and catch the intruder in the act. So the next day, the camera's all set, and he goes out, and the same things happen. Only this time, when he comes back and checks the footage, he discovers that a woman is crawling out from the cupboard, using his things and eating his food, and then going back into the cupboard. Now guys, I suppose you think I'm going to tell you this is a false story. If you are, and you don't believe for 1 second it could be the opposite, then I'm going to have to tell you that you're wrong to think so, because this is a true story. It did actually happen to a man in Japan who did the exact same things I've just described in the story. And the woman, by the way, was in her 40s, and she'd been living for days in the cupboard. That would be one freaky wake-up call, wouldn't you think? Now, this next story, I'm going to call The Dumb Crackheads, and you'll know why. It deals with two crackheads who share an apartment together, who do nothing more than sit on their butts smoking crack all the time, hence the term crackheads. And one evening, they were just sitting around, smoking their crack as usual. When one of them reaches for the phone to make a call. The only thing is that it turns out to have been the police who have answered the call, and they've come to arrest the crackheads. So yes, two crackheads who have ended up calling the police on themselves. This, guys, is another true story, I'm afraid. This actually did happen. So, in America of all places. So, well, it could be anywhere, but, you know, it did happen. And I'm going to close off with another classic, The Choking Doberman. Now, this is a gripping tale. A young woman goes out to work, leaving her dog to guard the house, and she comes home to find the dog choking. So she rushes him to the vet for an examination. And when the vet calls back, she receives the chilling news that the dog has swallowed a severed human finger, and that she should check the basement for an intruder. So she checks the basement and finds out that there was indeed an intruder. A burglar had broken into the house, and the dog, in defense of the house, had pinned him up against the wall and bitten off his finger. Now, don't worry, guys, don't worry. This story's not true. It's purely a legend. And I'm glad to have shared these stories with you today. And in some episodes, I'll share a few stories like I have today, and in others, they'll be quite short because I'll only cover one story. So look out for the next installment of the Urban Legends category of Semajical Story Time. Until then, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Until the next video, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Hey guys, and welcome back to Semajical Story Time. But the category I'm returning to is Stories from My Life, for the third installment of those. So which story from my life am I going to share with you today? Well, this one actually dates back to 1993, summer 1993 to be exact, when I was only 5 years old. And I'm going to call it My Grandma, My Saviour. You'll know why. See, in summer 1993, my family would often take us to a beach in Sussex called West Wittering. And on this particular summer's day, I was playing in the sea, like any kid would, and I disappeared under the waves. There's one thing that West Wittering was known for, and that was the holes in its ocean bed. Now, my grandmother jumped down after me and pulled me out. And since then, not only have I been eternally grateful to her for this, Grandma, thank you, but I've also been scared to go near any body of water because of remembering the childhood trauma of falling under the waves at the West Wittering beach. Now, what I've just told you guys is a true story from my childhood. And the absolute true story. I didn't exaggerate any of it. Although my grandmother was a very saintly lady. Now, and I realise this would be too short if I only counted one story. So, I'm going to do a few stories. The next story from my childhood actually jumps forward 5 years to summer 1998, when my family was on a family holiday at the Pentawyn Sands Holiday Resort in Cornwall. Now, we were in the swimming pool area on this particular day, and I slipped and sprained my ankle in a gutter. Ouch. And what my cousin would do is he would put me on his shoulders and carry me off to the arcades to have fun in the evenings while I was injured. He did this basically every night while we were there. So despite having just one accident that left me injured for the whole week that I was there, I still had fun on the holiday. Well, when I say the whole week, it happened on the third day of that holiday, so yeah. And I remember it only being a week long. It might have been longer. So, obviously, I should have said what I was going to call that story. I'll call it right here and right now. I'll call it Sprained Ankle Amusements. Now, I'm going to do another story. The third one here that I'm going to share with you is another holiday story, actually, now that I come to think of it. But one that happened more recently than any of those. In fact, 13 years ago in September 2010, when my mum's late partner was still alive. He, my mum, and my brother, older brother, and some friends of ours at the time went on a holiday to the Norfolk Broads. And that was a fun trip, a canal boat trip. And along the way, we stop at places such as Norwich and Great Yarmouth. And it was a holiday I would never forget. And I would never forget this holiday either, because it was the last one I ever went on. So, to this day, that is. Now, I wish I could turn these into fantasy stories, but I'm just here to share experiences with you guys. So there's nothing fanciful or fantasy to actually turn them into. But if you want me to turn one of these into a fantasy again, I'll take you back to my childhood for the final story, as I tell you the story of the saintly headmaster. And this takes me back to my primary school days. So I was attending Riverside School at the time in Purbrook, and it was run by this very nice man called Mr. Jones. And he was the most easygoing and patient man you could ever hope to meet. And you could do very little to upset him. Well, the story here is when we were getting ready to go on a summer camping trip to Chichester. So this was towards the end of my time as a Year 6 pupil. For those of you in America, you'll call that the 5th grade, age 10 to 11. So my Year 6, my primary school years were coming to an end. And this camping trip to Chichester was just being planned and talked about. And at this meeting, I raised my hand and asked if I'd had to go near a swimming pool because I'd had grummet in my ears and the doctor had forbidden me to go near water. And of course, Mr. Jones, the headmaster, said it was a sensible question and no, I wouldn't. And now, I actually say he's a saintly headmaster because every time, and I mean this then, every time you actually spoke to him or were around him, he was very nice and easy to talk to. Now this comes into the Mrs. Richards story again, the yoga teacher, and now I'm going to exaggerate this for entertainment purposes only, but of the Riverside school teachers and main staff in general, we now pit good versus evil, or angel versus devil. Mrs. Richards being the devil, and Mr. Jones being the angel. And because every time she would have a go, and he heard about it, he would sympathise with you, the pupil. So, he was God compared to most headmasters. So, yeah, there you go. True. And God versus Satan. Sorry to bring the religious subtext in here, but that's truly what it felt like. Because Mr. Jones was actually understanding about why I couldn't attend my last outdoor centre trip in its full after hitting my head on a lamppost. You know why? He was there when it happened. He actually saw my head collide with the lamppost. So, why would he have been furious? Yeah, my life is full of so many events and interesting people who have such character, aren't they? Isn't it? But that's it from Stories for My Life for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. There will be another episode of this segment soon. But until then, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Destiny 6. London, 1933. Destiny Ball was living in London with her son Dennis and daughter Crystal, who were unable to land jobs since the Great Depression took over the world. Even Destiny had been made redundant due to the company she worked for going out of business. Crystal, however, was a nanny down on her luck as she'd had to leave her job with the Cameron family because they could no longer afford to pay her. All out of work because of the depression had left them feeling very depressed. This also meant Dennis wasn't able to go to university, unable to afford it, nor could he get a job due to the current state of the world. One day, as they made their way around London, Crystal noticed a family who needed her help and went to offer them her services as a nanny, but they couldn't afford to pay her. "I'm volunteering my services as a nanny," she told the father, but he still rejected her offer. It wasn't long before they all found voluntary jobs. A supermarket accepted Destiny's offer for free help in the shop on the spot. The Collins family offered Crystal a voluntary position as the nanny for his children, and she accepted. There should be their children, without a second thought. Dennis, on the other hand, was offered a free place at Oxford, which meant he was to move to Oxfordshire to attend the university. Destiny and Crystal were very proud of him for getting into Oxford, free of charge, and happily saw him off. 2 weeks later, Destiny was earning money again, meaning her employer had given her paid work, but she was only making 7 shillings a week, which was good enough for her and her family to live on. Even Crystal was earning money for her nanny services to the Collins family, as Mr. Collins was back at work and could pay her 9 shillings a week, which she appreciated. After a few weeks, Destiny decided it was time to move out of London, and Crystal agreed, suggesting they move to the Isle of Wight, so they handed in their notices and wrote to Dennis letting him know of the move. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have us a magical time. Illyria's Preparation Course, A Fairyland Tale, and the prequel to The Twinkling. For this visit to Fairyland, we go back 12 years before the events of The Twinkling. Of course, we follow the lore established in the intro to that tale and expand on it. Of course, this particular tale is about to begin. Illyria was a young fairy in her late adolescence in the fairy world. She was 500 years old, which was 12 years away from her transition into adulthood, which marked the beginning of her preparation period for that moment. All her life she dreamed of going out into the human world on missions, which she'd grown up being warned could be dangerous, especially for young fairies who are new to the job and are currently in mission training with an assigned fairy mentor. She knew all this from her years at Fairyland School of Magic, her secondary school years anyway, the 55 years of study between the ages of 290 to 345 years old. This was also when she would have earned her wings, shortly after starting her 12th year at SFE. That's Secondary Fairy Education of SFE, which she would have started when she was 301 years, 2 months, 1 week old. This meant she first entered the school at the tender age of 74, as fairy children began their primary school years at that age, and finished it at 290, just 2 months before moving on to their secondary school years. Anyway, she was now in the final years of her adolescence, and while legally allowed to use magic within Fairyland, she was still underage, and was allowed to take unsupervised visits into the human world, but was forbidden by fairy law from using any magic during those visits, which means going undercover in her human form to blend in with the humans. She knew any minor breaches of the fairy code resulted in a 2-month sentence in fairy prison, while serious breaches resulted in harsher punishments, ranging from exile to execution, based on how serious the breach was. It was, for example, illegal for fairies to mate with humans and have offspring with them, according to Section 17 of the Fairy Code. This was a breach serious enough to result in the offender's exile from Fairyland. Underage fairies revealing themselves to humans was a serious breach of Section 1 of the Fairy Code, which resulted in the same punishment. Illyria thought these laws were stupid, but she abided by them like all the other fairies. So she was a law-abiding fairy citizen. She shared her hopes and dreams with anyone who would listen to her. As she passed the school, she saw a young fairy boy using magic outside the grounds, which was against Fairy Code Section 1, as fairies had to be at least 500 to use magic within Fairyland. You shouldn't be using magic outside school, little one. To legally use magic within Fairyland, you need to have left school and be at least 500 years old, she told him gently. When she arrived home, she began studying for her twinkling, which she knew was going to be a 12-year course set by the Fairy Council, and the elders would not be happy if she was wasting their time. Her father Sirius noticed how hard she was finding it to concentrate, and out of concern sat down to coach her through it. Her mother Starla even pitched in, and with their help, she buckled down and studied hard. And on her 512th birthday, she received her graduation certificate, along with the time of her twinkling ceremony, which was to be held in 2 hours' time. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. The plane stop. Have any of you ever heard of a plane stop? No? Well, I'd like you to imagine, if you will, a world in which all the bus stops have been replaced with air runways and bus passes have become plain boarding passes. And that's what this story is all about. One sunny Monday morning in July, Rupert Fiennes was on his way to work. As he worked in the city, he needed to board a plane there, so he walked down to the nearest plane stop and showed his boarding pass and business card to check in to get his seat in business class. 3. Once seated in business class of Flight 23 to Portsmouth from Nursery Runway, he buckled up and relaxed as the pilot announced takeoff, and off they went, jetting up into the sky. They made several stops along the way before finally landing at Portsmouth and Southsea Airport, and he thanked the flight attendants and got off the plane. As he left the terminal, he emerged onto the busy city street and made his way to his place of work, which was Waterstone's bookshop, for his shift. During his shift, he sold 60 books and box sets, which was a record for a morning shift worker. After lunch, he boarded first flight 3 to Fareham Airport to see his sister Dana for the afternoon. Once he boarded and seated himself in a window seat in the normal cabin, he ordered a cup of coffee and a donut for the flight. After about an hour's flight, they arrived at Fareham Airport, where Dana was there to meet him at the gate. "How was your flight?" she asked him. "It was good, thanks," he replied as they left the terminal and got in the car and got in her car. When they arrived at Dana's house, his nieces Tiff and Lynn greeted him with the biggest hug ever. It was time to begin the afternoon with his sister and nieces, and it was loads of fun. After 6 hours of non-stop fun, he caught the 8 o'clock flight back to Cosham Airport, where he had to change flights back to Maylands Airport. Board a stage flight 23 to Lee Park Airport, which didn't take very long considering it was only 10 stops away. Once he was off the plane at Maylands Airport, he thanked the people at the terminal and wished them a good night before leaving the terminal and walking home. His day had been very eventful and he was tired. Once he was in the front door, he conked out on the living room sofa. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have us a magical time. Hi guys, and welcome back to Semajical Story Time, the show where I may tell you one of my own stories from yesteryears, or stories from my life. But no, not this time round. It's back to urban legends we go, and this is our second go around with those. So, I'm gonna tell you in this episode, I'm gonna tell you 2 stories. But which two stories am I going to tell you? Well, you'll have to wait and see. Because here comes the first story now. And I think you're going to find it rather bone-chilling. It's a story called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. Now, this story actually details the story of a babysitter who's babysitting a couple's children. Now, she's just put the kids to bed at this early stage of the story and thought she might actually relax in the living room. But as soon as she sits down to relax, the telephone rings. And this creepy voice at the other end of the phone says, "At 10:30, I'm going to come and kill the I'm going to kill the children." Horrified by this, she rushes off to check the children. They're fine. Thinking nothing of it and not seeing anything suspicious, she returns to the living room to resume her relaxing. But no sooner than she does this, the phone rings again, and she answers it to hear the same creepy voice saying, "Check the children. I'm gonna kill them at 10:30. So, at this point, she's freaked out enough to call the police for help. And they get to work tracing the calls, while she goes off to check the children. Again. They're still fine. But on the third time, she misses a check of the parents' room to see if there's anything suspicious in there, and returns to the living room. The phone rings again, and this time all she can hear is the screams of the children being slain. So she rushes off to find them slain. But when she returns to the living room this time, she gets a call back from the police saying they've traced the calls and they're coming from inside the house, urging her to get out quickly before she gets slain. Because and they're sending someone over to deal with the problem. Now, when the police arrive, they enter the house and go up to the parents' room to find a man sitting on the bed with the landline telephone on the bedside table. Well, the detectives go to investigate the children's room to find them slain. And then they tell the young lady she was lucky to have escaped the same tragic fate, as the children's bodies are taken away by the coroners. Now, guys, this is a cautionary tale about who to trust with your children's safety. And this comes from a time when landline phones were a thing. Of course, they're not anymore, so yeah. But also, you don't need to worry too much about this because it's not a true story. It's a legend. So you can rest easy on that one, I hope. So, On now to the final story of the day, or of the night by the time you're seeing this. The story that is going to be called The Body in the Water Tank, or Dark Water. Now, the story here is set at a California hotel where guests are staying, but there's one guest in particular who is acting strange. And her roommate is getting freaked out by her strange episode, so she calls the front desk to request to be moved because her roommate is freaking her out. So the front desk sends someone up to move the other girl out of the room into a separate room so she can rest easy. Now here's where the mysterious thing starts to happen. A few days after this, the water starts to run jet black from all the taps and showers in the hotel, and guests start ringing the front desk complaining of a putrid smell. So someone goes up to investigate the complaints. They actually go up onto the hotel roof, which, by the way, only the staff can exit, only the staff can enter, and they look in the water tank to find the decomposing dead corpse of the young woman. And this was the cause of the water running jet black and the putrid smell. So that's the story, guys, but do you think this actually happened in real life to someone? Or do you think it's a myth? I'll give you some time to work that out for yourselves. Okay, have you worked it out? If you said it's false, then I'm afraid, my friends, that you've falsified that answer for yourselves because this actually happened. Yeah, it did. It happened in 2013 at the Cecil Hotel in California, where Canadian student 21-year-old Elisa Lam was staying. And one day, the water did start running jet black with a putrid smell, and when hotel staff went up to investigate, they found Elisa's dead body decomposing in the water tank. How she got there, no one knows. And she was acting strange. There's even hotel security camera footage to back that up. And, well, we have to be kind to the poor young lady because she was bipolar. So, her strange episodes. Okay. So I hate to burst your bubble on that one, guys. And if you think the story sounds eerily similar to that of a horror film, an American remake of a horror film from Japan that was released 5 years earlier, Dark Water, you'd be right. It's the events of the film playing out in real life. But no, the film did not predict it. So, is just an unfortunate coincidence. And even though this happened 10 years ago now, condolences go out to the Lamb family. So, guys, that's it for this episode of Semajical Story Time. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Crystal and the Orphans of War. By me. Isle of Wight, 1939. Crystal Ball moved with her mother Destiny to the Isle of Wight 6 years earlier, and was happy living her life safely in the middle of nowhere. The thing is, war was breaking out and children were being evacuated from the city, and she received a call from an evacuation officer who had 3 children with her. Mrs. Smith had brought the Buckley children to be placed into her care. "So who do I have here?" she asked happily. Mrs. Smith pointed each child out in turn. The eldest brother was Simon, the youngest brother was Ryan, and their baby sister Lily, and she adored them all instantly. She was fostering 3 beautiful children during the war, and being a qualified caregiver made her more than qualified to care for her 3 foster children. Destiny was proud of her for taking in 3 needy children during the hard times. As well as being a temporary grandmother, baby Lily was sleeping at the moment, so everybody needed to be quiet. When she was up, Crystal changed and fed her, giving confidence to her foster sons Simon and Ryan, who were amazed at how she looked after their sister. They even got their true confirmation of her commitment to caring for all 3 of them, as she made them a lovely family dinner to welcome them all to their new home. "I'm a nanny, my lovelies," she told them during dinner. As they finished their meal, the doorbell rang, and she answered it to find her younger brother Dennis on the step, and led him through. She soon gathered the kids together and introduced them to their new fun-loving foster uncle, and they were very happy to meet each other. Crystal was very keen to give her foster children the best life she could. Although Simon was 7 and Ryan was 5, they were young enough to appreciate her good-heartedness, as well as remember their birth parents, whilst Lily was only 6 months old. Which is a contradiction to later on, but you know. "1-year-old, and too young to remember their birth parents." However, they knew how much Crystal loved them, and even though they weren't actually her children. 2 years later, Crystal Ball had spent the last 2 years raising the three Buckley children, who were now very happy in her care. She was out in the country with them to give them some fresh air. They were all enjoying each other's company. Lily was holding tightly to her hand while Simon and Ryan walked a little ahead, but stayed close. They stopped by the pond so Lily could feed the ducks. "Remember, darling, don't go too close to the edge," she reminded her. "I won't, Mummy," replied Lily. "Good girl." Crystal praised her and gave her a bag of bread and watched happily as she threw bread to the ducks. When they arrived home, she found a telegram from the War Office informing them of the deaths of the children's parents. This then made Crystal want to adopt them as her own, considering how much they all loved each other. And they had no one left in London. For a while, she comforted them about it, although Lily had no memory of them. As far as she was concerned, Crystal was her mother, seeing as she was the only mother Lily had ever known. A few weeks later, their family lives truly began. Even the boys were happy to have a new mother. And that was Crystal and the Orphans of War. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. The Prodigy, An Amazing World Tale by me. Dirk Vigilance was only 5 years old and very unusual for a boy his age, as this was the age he and his parents, Oliver and Olivia, first discovered his sudden talent for writing, which surprised them all. "Our little boy is a very special child," said Olivia proudly. Oliver decided it was time he put that talent to good use, so he bought him a computer, which he took to straight away. Within the next 3 weeks, Dirk had written a collection of more than 20 short stories, each way more compelling than the last. In September, just before he started school, his short story collection was sent to a publisher, who summoned them to his office for a chat about his stories. The publisher, Mr. Ash Booker, was very impressed with Dirk's ability to write before he'd even learned how to read, write, or spell. "My dear boy, you've got real talent. You're what we in this business call a prodigy," he told him, which made Oliver and Olivia smile. Ash then handed Dirk a check for the publishing rights to his book and every book he ever wrote, offering to personally publish it. It was a £60,000 check, and Dirk accepted it without question. Oliver took him to the bank the check into his own high-security bank account, which he and Olivia were going to help maintain, as well as managing his writing career. Over the next 12 months, they accompanied him on his first world book tour to promote the book's release worldwide. He was now 6 years old, and a published author, as he received the initial copy of his book and immediately sat down to read it. This news soon caught the attention of 3 major universities, each offering him a place in their writing and languages programs, and he chose to accept his place in Oxford's languages program for the next 3 years. In September, he entered Oxford for the first time and was blown away by how big it was, but he settled in straight away. The staff and students were amazed when he told them he was only 6 and was already in university. The next 3 years seemed to fly by like they'd never even started, and he was soon graduating with a first-class honours degree at the age of just 9 years old. The youngest graduate to ever be awarded a degree from one of Britain's top universities. Over this time, he used his leisure time to write his first adventure novel, which he'd already sent off to Ash for publishing. He said it was to be the first in a series of 20 novels set in a fantasy land called Heraclina, and couldn't wait to hear back. He heard back within 10 days, and his book was in the early stages of publishing. Before he knew it, he was off on a book tour to promote the release of this book. Upon his return the following September, he received the initial copy of this book, The Heraclina Chronicles Book 1, The Strenuous Labours of Heracles, and sat down to start reading. It was so good he couldn't put it down and finished it in 2 weeks, despite it being over 2,000 pages long and 65 chapters. After this, he immediately began working on the second novel in the series. By the time he was 21, he'd completed the first era of Heraclina Chronicles books and was starting to work on the second era, the 11th book, which was to be set over 3,000 years after the previous book. Of the 10 books he'd written so far, his favourite was the first, as it served as the origin story for the land that would become known as Heraclina. By the time he was 47, he'd published the final book of the epic saga and was ready for a well-earned break from writing to rest his brain and his hands. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share and subscribe. There will be another one soon. Until then, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time. Hey guys, and welcome to the 3rd episode of the Urban Legends series of Semajical Story Time. This is the segment of the show in which I retell urban legends, obviously, for those who might just be tuning in. So, The urban legend I'm going to be telling you today will be as follows. Our first story in today's episode is The Curse of Bed Number 3. Now, this is a story of a supposedly cursed hospital bed in an African hospital where patients mysteriously died overnight in that bed. And there was someone around to witness this. A nurse whose shift had recently been changed from Saturday to Thursday nights. Now, let me tell you the whole story. Every time a patient would be admitted to the hospital with an illness or a complaint, they'd be admitted to bed 3 on this ward. And while they were sleeping, they would mysteriously die in that bed without any known cause. Now, the young nurse at the time actually worked on Thursdays during the day, so wasn't there when these deaths happened, since they only happened at night. And every time a patient was in bed 3. But her rota was then changed, so she then worked on Thursday nights, and she was there to see what happened. Now, what I forgot to mention is they would station someone to watch bed 3 at nights before this nurse's rota was changed. And when they started doing this, the mysterious deaths in bed 3 suddenly stopped. So they stopped stationing someone in the ward to watch over the bed. Now, this happened around the same time the nurse's shifts were changed from Thursday during the day to Thursday nights. So she happened to be there right when they stopped doing that. And on her very first Thursday night shift, a patient was in bed 3 and it was unplugged. That's what she saw. So a patient died in bed 3. But what she saw was nothing extraordinary. The bed was just being unplugged by the hospital cleaner, so she could use the socket for the hoover while she cleaned the room, not knowing that it was going to unplug the life support system of whichever patient was in that bed, because the cord of the hoover didn't actually reach where she needed it to go. So the supposed curse of bed number 3 was just the life support unit being unplugged, so a hoover could be used. Not a curse at all. So, that is it for this story. But stay tuned, because there is another one coming. Our next story is one that could hit home for some of you. And then again, maybe not. But I'm going to call it Cooked from the Inside Out. Now, this story actually concerns a young bride-to-be wanting to look her best for her upcoming wedding. So she spends a lot of time going from tanning salon to tanning salon using their tanning beds in order to give herself the tan she wants for her wedding. The only problem is she's overusing the tanning bed. And by the time her big day arrives, she collapses at the altar, dead, having been cooked from the inside out by the tanning beds. Yes, the tanning bed had cooked her insides. Let that be a lesson to you. There's another story coming. Our final story today for this section is sorry about that, guys. Our final story for this section today is The Hook. Yeah, okay. And now, this story is set at the viewpoint of Lovers Lane, where young couples go to make out, and involves a specific young couple who were at Lovers Lane on this particular night making out, when a news report comes onto the radio informing them of an escaped killer who has escaped from the nearest prison. And to warn them to get out of the area and go home. Now, understandably, the young woman in this case is scared to death and wants her boyfriend to drive her home. And he won't do it straight away. Despite having been warned not to stay in the area. And after much pressuring and much convincing, he does eventually take his girlfriend home. But when he gets out of the driver's side to go to the passenger side to usher her out of the vehicle, he finds a hook hanging on the handle of the door. Yes, they have been targeted by the killer. Okay guys, that's our 3 stories. And you'll be happy to hear my report that none of them are true. These are all legends. So yeah, there you go. 3 stories that are total urban legends. So you can rest assured that you won't be stalked by a hook-handed killer, nor will you die in bed number 3 if you're on an African ward. Why would you be if you're not in Africa? And nor For that matter, will you under any circumstances be cooked from the inside out by a tanning bed? Because the ultraviolet lights of a tanning bed are not powerful enough to cook you from the inside out. No, sir. And no, ma'am. That can't happen. Okay. So that's it for today's 3 stories. I hope you enjoyed. There will be another episode of this segment coming soon. But until then, if you enjoyed this one, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Feel free to leave a request for an urban legend to be told in the comments below. Or request for any segment in which I just come on and tell stories. Wait, there's only 2 of them, and the other one's for personal stories, so I can't really do that. That's just for this one then. So... But anyway, thanks for watching and have a Semajical time.